The finance exhibition was crowded and loud, full of bright lights and sharp voices. I was there because my manager said I needed to learn more about our competitors. I did not want to go. I had a headache before I even stepped inside. People rushed past me in suits, holding coffee and business cards like weapons. That was where I met Marco. He was standing at one of the smaller booths, showing some kind of savings app to two men. I was trying to find the exit when he turned and smiled at me, like I was the only person in the room. I remember that moment clearly. His shirt was too casual for the event. He looked like he belonged somewhere else. But when he spoke, he sounded confident, calm, and full of charm. "You look lost," he said. I was. And I laughed. Even though I did not want to, we talked for 10 minutes. About interest rates, digital loans, and how boring the exhibition was. Then he gave me his card and said he hoped to see me again. His company was launching a new app soon, and they were looking for people in marketing. That was my job. I told myself it was just work, but I emailed him the next day anyway. His reply came quickly. He remembered everything I had said. He made a joke about the bad coffee at the venue and asked if I wanted to meet again for something stronger. That was how it started. A coffee after work, then a walk, then 2 dinners in the same week. He was older than me by 7 years. He spoke about life like he had already seen too much of it. He had been divorced once, had no kids, and said he preferred quiet nights to loud bars. I believed all of it. I told myself he was grown up, safe, serious. He asked about my work and dreams like they mattered. He listened in a way most people never did. I had been in relationships before, but this felt different. In the beginning, Marco made me feel like I was the only woman in the world. He said things that made me blush. He opened doors, brought flowers, and knew when I was tired just by the sound of my voice. It moved fast. After a month, we were spending almost every evening together. I started keeping a toothbrush at his place. He made space in his kitchen for my tea. It felt warm and close. It felt like something real. But sometimes, something in me felt unsure. There were moments when he would go quiet, when he would look at his phone and smile without explaining. He said it was work. He was helping a friend set up a business abroad. I did not ask too many questions. I wanted to trust him. One evening, I stayed at his place while he went to pick up food. I opened the wrong kitchen drawer by accident and found a stack of old envelopes. Most were empty. One had a letter inside. I did not read it, but the name on it was not his, or at least not the name he gave me. I told myself maybe it was nothing. Maybe he used to live with a friend. Maybe it was old mail from someone else. Before we continue, I would love to know, where are you listening from today? Which city? Which country? Share it in the comments. And if you enjoy stories like this, please subscribe so you do not miss the next one. But a voice inside me whispered something different. About 6 weeks into our relationship, I introduced him to 2 of my friends. We met at a rooftop bar for drinks. I could see the doubt on their faces, even before he finished speaking. He talked too much about himself, He smiled too little. After he left early, one of them asked, "Are you sure he is what you think he is?" I said yes, but I was not sure. I started noticing small things. He was never free on Sunday afternoons. He never let me visit his office. He said he liked to separate work from love. He often asked to meet last minute, never planning more than 2 days ahead. When I asked about this, he kissed my hand and said, "I live in the present. You should try it too." One Sunday, I passed near the address he once gave me for work. It was supposed to be an office in a small building downtown, but when I looked, the name of his company wasn't there. In fact, there was no sign of it at all. The floor he had mentioned belonged to a dental clinic. I did not ask him that night. I was too afraid of the answer. One night, I had a strange dream. In it, I was standing in a room full of mirrors, but every mirror showed a different face, none of them mine. When I woke up, Marco was already gone. He had left early for a meeting, he said, but he had not told me about it the night before, and his cologne still filled the room. I do not know when exactly I began to doubt him. It was not one moment. It was many small things that added up. A strange name on his phone, a pause before answering a simple question, a receipt in his jacket pocket for a restaurant we had never been to. On a day he said he was sick. Still, I told myself to stop being paranoid. One Friday, I was invited to a finance tech launch. I almost did not go, but then I saw his company's name on the guest list. I thought maybe I could surprise him. I wore a new dress and brought a smile. But he was not there when I arrived. His booth was empty. I waited. After 30 minutes, someone came to collect the signs and materials. "Marco could not make it," the young woman said. "He flew to Zurich yesterday." Zurich? He had told me he was working from home that day. I felt the blood leave my face. I called him, and he picked up. His voice was normal. "I am just finishing some work," he said. "Want to come over later?" I hung up without answering. That night, I did not go. I stayed in my apartment and tried to sleep. But my mind was loud. I started looking him up online. His company's website was basic, with no real contact information. I searched for his name. Then I searched harder. I did not find much. A few comments on business forums. A blurry photo. One post from 3 years ago saying he had been part of a startup that closed down after a legal dispute. That was the moment I knew. He was not who he said he was. Or at least, not completely. The next day, I confronted him. He laughed. Then he got quiet. Then he said, "You are reading too much into things." But the way he avoided my eyes told me everything. I left his apartment and walked until my legs hurt. I did not cry. Not yet. At that point, I still wanted to believe he was only half a lie. I did not block his number. I did not delete his messages. I told myself I needed answers. But the truth was, I was not ready to let go. Even after everything, I still wanted him to say something that would make it all make sense. I still wanted to believe there was another version of the story, one where he had reasons, one where I had not been a fool. A week passed. I kept busy at work, stayed late, cleaned my apartment twice, but my thoughts returned to Marco every night. I looked at my phone more times than I want to admit. There were no new messages from him, only silence. Then one evening, as I was locking up at the office, I saw him. He was standing near the street, under a tree, as if he had been waiting there. He looked tired. He smiled when he saw me, but it was not the same smile. It felt forced, like he knew he had lost something. "I just want to talk," he said. I nodded and walked past him, but he followed. We ended up sitting on a bench near the parking lot. He said he was sorry. He said he should have told me the full truth, that he was involved in more than one business, and that sometimes things got complicated. He never admitted to lying, but he also did not deny the parts I had discovered. When I asked him why he had said he flew to Zurich but did not, he paused. Then he said, "Sometimes I think I want too many things, and I lie to keep the peace." That was not peace. That was confusion. That was control. I stood up and told him to never contact me again. He looked away as I walked to my car, but it was not the end. 2 days later, I got a message. Then another. He started sending me long texts, talking about how much he missed me, how he had made mistakes, how he was working on himself. He did not ask me how I was. He only talked about how he felt. I did not answer. Then one morning, I saw him again, this time outside the cafe where I always got my tea. He said he had been in the area, but I knew he had waited for me. He said he still had the toothbrush I left, that he sometimes held it, thinking of me. It made my skin crawl. I told him clearly to leave me alone, but he laughed and said I was being dramatic, that I would change my mind. I started feeling afraid. It was not just the lies anymore. It was the way he refused to accept my no, the way he believed his feelings mattered more than my boundaries, the way he turned every sentence into something about him. I stopped going to the cafe. I changed my route to work. I blocked his number. I removed every photo we had taken together, but the ache remained. It was not love anymore. It was something else, something heavier. My friends tried to help. They said I had done the right thing, that I had escaped something worse, but I could not stop blaming myself. Why did I not ask more questions? Why did I ignore the signs? Why did I want so badly for him to be good? One night, I lay on my bed and stared at the ceiling. I remembered something he once said. People show you who they are in pieces. If you are smart, you will see the whole puzzle early. He had said that, and I had smiled. Now I knew. He had been describing himself. A few weeks passed. Then I heard from someone I barely knew, a woman from another department at work. She had met Marco too, at a different tech event, a few months before I did. They had gone out once. He told her the same story, same company, same app, same friend abroad. It was like reading the first page of a book I thought was mine, and realizing it was printed 100 times for different readers. That was when the shame truly hit me. I had not been special. I had been part of a pattern. I went quiet after that. I stopped talking about him, even with friends. I needed time. I needed space to remember who I had been before I met him. I bought new bed sheets. I changed my wallpaper. I signed up for a weekend pottery class. Not because I cared about bowls or cups, but because I needed to touch something real. Slowly, the noise in my head began to fade. One evening, I sat in my kitchen with a cup of warm tea. The sky outside was pink and gold. The world looked soft again. I thought about Marco, but this time it felt like thinking about a stranger, not a heartbreak, not a ghost. Just a person who had passed through my life and taught me what not to accept. He had been nothing like I hoped, but in the end, I was grateful, because now I understood something deeper. Love is not made of perfect smiles and sweet words. It is made of truth, of respect, of someone choosing you again and again, without games, without secrets. And that kind of love, I still believe it exists, but I will never settle for anything less again. But I will never settle for anything less again. It took more time than I thought to feel like myself. Healing was not a straight path. Some days, I woke up full of energy, ready to start new things. Other days, I sat in silence, wondering if everything I had felt was real, or if it had all been something I made up because I was lonely. I stopped comparing my journey to anyone else's. I stopped looking at couples on the street and wondering if they had what I had wanted. Instead, I focused on small things, morning walks, good books, quiet afternoons. One evening, a friend invited me to a small dinner party. I almost said no, but I said yes. I wore a dress I had not worn in months, not for anyone else, but for myself. At the table, we laughed about simple things, old school days, travel stories, bad dates. And for the first time in a long while, I laughed without a heavy feeling in my chest. Someone at the table asked me if I was seeing anyone. I smiled and said no. I told them I was getting to know someone new, myself. They laughed politely, but I meant it, because after everything, I had learned something important. It was not just about falling for the wrong person. It was about why I stayed when things did not feel right, why I made space for someone who made me feel small, why I believed it was better to be chosen by someone than to choose myself first. I do not regret meeting Marco. I regret not listening to myself sooner. But maybe that is how we grow. We trust. We fall. We break a little. Then we learn how to stand again, on our own. That was the last chapter of us, but it was also the first chapter of something better, not with someone else, but with me. Months passed. Spring came, soft and warm, like a second chance. I started walking in the evenings again. I would take the long way home just to feel the air on my face. The city looked different now, not because it had changed, but because I had. I no longer looked for him in every corner. I no longer checked my phone expecting his name to appear. There were still moments, of course, when a certain song played, or when I walked past the restaurant we once loved. but the ache was lighter now. It had turned into something I could carry without pain. One afternoon while cleaning, I found the card he gave me at the finance exhibition, the first day we met. I had kept it in a drawer under papers I never looked at. I held it for a long time. It was just a small piece of paper, but it had opened so many doors, some beautiful, some painful. I placed it in the bin gently, like closing a door that had been open too long. That same week, I ran into an old colleague from university. Her name was Layla. We had not spoken in years, but we used to be close. She said she was in town for a few weeks, helping her brother open a book cafe. We met again 2 days later. We talked about work, family, memories from our early 20s. I told her a little about Marco. Not everything, but enough. She listened with kind eyes. She did not ask questions I did not want to answer. Then she said something I still remember. "You know," she said, "sometimes the wrong people enter our lives not to hurt us, but to wake us up. It is like life shaking us and saying, 'You forgot who you are.'" I smiled, because that was exactly how it felt. Layla invited me to her brother's cafe the day before it opened. I walked in and felt peace. The lights were warm, the shelves full of stories. There was no noise, only soft music and the smell of new beginnings. I sat near the window with a book, and for the first time in a long while, I felt excited. Not for someone to walk in, not for someone to look at me, but for what I would discover next. In stories, in life, in myself. I started coming there often. It became my quiet space. I would bring my notebook and write short reflections, some about the past, some about hope. I did not plan it, but slowly, a new idea started to grow. What if I shared my story, not for attention, not for revenge, but for healing, for connection, for anyone out there who might be loving someone who does not love them the same way, for anyone who needs to hear, "You are not alone." So I wrote. And I shared it, little by little through a small blog. I called it Not What I Hoped. It was simple, but it was mine. To my surprise, people read it. Some wrote back. They told me their own stories. Some were still in pain. Some had already healed. Some were still deciding what to do. But all of them had one thing in common. They felt seen. That gave me strength. Sometimes what breaks you also builds your voice. One afternoon, I got an email from someone I did not know. Her name was Maria. She said she had been in a relationship for 2 years with someone who reminded her of Marco. She said my words helped her see her own truth. That she had ended it, that she felt scared but free. I cried reading it, not because of her pain, but because I understood it, and because something I once wished had never happened was now giving someone else the courage to leave. Pain becomes power when we stop hiding it. By the end of summer, I had written 10 stories for the blog. Each one had a part of me, not the perfect part, not the smiling, polished part, but the raw, honest one, the girl who had once believed in lies and now believed in her own strength. Then, one ordinary evening, I got a message from Marco. It was short. He said he had read one of my posts, that he knew it was about him, that he was sorry if I still hurt, and that he hoped I was doing well. I stared at the screen for a long time. Then I deleted it. Not because I was angry, but because I no longer needed to explain anything. Not to him. Not to myself. That chapter had ended, and this time, for real. Now when I think of him, I do not feel hate. I feel nothing, and that is a gift, because when you feel nothing, it means the wound is closed. It means the heart has stopped bleeding. It means you survived. And not only survived, you grew. These days, I smile more easily, not because life is perfect, but because I feel whole again. I am not waiting for someone to make me feel loved. I already do. I trust myself more. I ask better questions. I listen to that quiet voice inside, the one I ignored for too long. And if love comes again, I will welcome it, but I will not lose myself to keep it, because now I know I deserve honesty. I deserve peace. I deserve to be chosen, not once, not briefly, but fully and without conditions.